Protect your home from home. Simple Caravan Insurance, sponsors of the Caravan Channel.
Well, if there's one person who knows everything there is to know about the water system in a caravan or a motorhome, it's John Wickersham. And here he is.
Hello, I'm John Wickersham, and in this short talk about caravan or motorhome fittings, I've chosen as my subject, wait for it, taps. Now, why would Wicky choose a subject like taps and bring along with him all these bits of water fittings? Why on earth did he choose that? Well, there's a seasonal reason. I know that a lot of people watching this will have drained down their water heater. They understand that frost causes damage. And that's why I think we can look at one or two things here. For example, even if you have got a good drain down system like this, you still get situations where a length of pipe has a downturn and water gets left in that downturn of pipe, and of course it can freeze during the cold spells. Now, I used to think that the ice was the element which caused damage to the couplings or to other fittings, and yes, it does, and it can split the pipe, but it does another thing. It expands as it freezes, and if you haven't left taps open, you're going to get damage. That pressure build-up is relieved if you leave the taps all open, both on the shower controls as well as on the kitchen taps. And that's what I used to do on my caravan. But when I built a motorhome some years ago, I fitted these lever taps, which I rather liked. One side is hot, one side is cold, and they mix the water. But I made a bad mistake. End of the season, lifted the lever correctly. But when I went back just before one of those February exhibitions and I wanted to take my motorhome, guess what I found? I found that the assembly itself had snapped off completely from the section below the worktop. And the whole lot was totally irreparable. Why did it happen? Well, it's simple really. Lifting this is not enough, because if it's on, shall we say, the cold side, it doesn't relieve pressure in the hot side of the pipe. You have to make sure that it's completely midway, and then when you lift it up, both hot and cold pipes have an outlet so that a pressure build-up from freezing has some way of escaping. Now, when they first introduced electric pumps, and there are all kinds of electric pumps, they had to work out a way of switching it into action, and that caused a few questions. And two different methods were employed to get the electric pump working. Sometimes it was the tap which not only opened the waterway, but had a switching system that would bring the motor into operation. Some switching systems relied on pressure. And in this kind of pump, which tends to be fitted more in motorhomes rather than caravans, there is a pressure-sensitive switch housed in the assembly at the end. Alternatively, if you have a submersible pump, some of them have a pressure-sensitive assembly in here, and others have a standalone pressure-sensitive switch. The pipe is here, the pipe is there, and the moment you open your tap and the pressure in the pipes drops, the switch switches on the motor. Now, I'm not going to talk any more about those because they're fairly complicated. And anyway, in so many caravans, you will find that they have a switch in the tap assembly itself. And you can always establish whether you've got a tap with what we call a micro switch by looking underneath the sink, by looking underneath the shower control and looking to see if there's a cable coming from the control. Because if there is, that's the giveaway. You haven't got a pressure sensitive switching system, you've got a small switch that's located underneath. And it is small, and sometimes they go wrong. Now, it's actually not too difficult to change one of these, provided you're about this tall, provided you can see in the dark, and provided you have the flexibility of a circus contortionist, because it's dark under a sink. So I'm not going to take you under the sink right now. We're going to use this as a brief showing of how the micro switch is situated, how a clip is taken off, how it becomes detached, and there are the two wires. And if you did want to test to see if this had gone wrong, all you'd have to do is to take off the cables and touch them together, just as the switch would. And if your pump burst into life, you'd know that that was where the fault was. After all, it is small. And there is a tiny, tiny little pip on the end, which is the action, the switch itself, that causes the pump to operate. So they're not easy to actually fit when it's in the dark and under the sink. Whereas this kind, the lever ones, everything is done from on top. And you have to start by taking out the little red and blue cover. But be careful, because I made a mistake the first time. I got so excited pulling this off that all the bits fell out, and I couldn't work out for several minutes how they fitted together. But I've done it for you. I've lifted the same type of micro switch away from the assembly, and now it's easy to change in full view because it's above the worktop itself. I hope you found that interesting, but wait, I can hear a bit of a noise. I think that might be the caravanners and motorhome viewers who are rushing off just to see if they did remember to leave all their taps wide open when they last used their vehicle.